Freedom Mirror is a community for entrepreneurs and business owners that gives you the tools and the system to create a new revenue stream online through high commission sales with automation and huge passive potential. With TFE, you can forget about small margins and small commissions and learn how to make 5 figures in 7 sales or less. To find out how to set up your freedom business, check out the free training at brendandmurphy.com/income. All right, hello and welcome to this episode of Truthiverse. This week I'm joined by my fellow truth seeker, and well, he's a pioneer in the field of sound healing and DNA activation, also a pioneering artist, very well recognized, internationally respected artist, Sol Luckman. Sol, good to have you here, mate.
Thanks for having me, Brendan. It's nice to catch up a little bit. We were catching up before we came on air.
Yeah, it is. It's good to. We don't get to do it a lot, but this is a good chance, and it'll be a slightly longer version of a catch up, which is good. And you've just published a book which is about the fallen goddess, and so apparently this is really catching on, and we're going to talk about that and dig into it. So Sol, which I should have mentioned, was also a very respected author and writer, and he's got several books out there which I recommend, including Conscious Healing and Potentiate Your DNA. And so this latest one is about the fallen goddess. Let's dig into that, Sol. Where would you like to start? Maybe, I mean, how did you end up writing about this in the first place?
Well, I'll be happy to speak to that. I wanted to say the book is actually not published yet. It's going to be officially released on Sunday or the 20th in our hemisphere. So that's the solstice, and I thought if you're going to write a book on the goddess, you need to release it either on the solstice or the equinox. There's just no ifs, ands, and buts about it.
Yeah, okay. Fitting, very fitting. All right. So it's not quite released yet. It's about to be released.
Right. So people have been reading galley copies and excerpts and listening to interviews about it. I've given a huge number of interviews. I just interviewed with Chef Pete last week, and he's going to be putting that up in the next day or two. That was really fun. And awesome. Michael Jaco and I had a great conversation. Mark Atwood, Nicholas Vinyaman. It's been great. I mean, the interest has been very encouraging, and the just the comments that I've gotten from the interviews and from people reading the excerpts and dipping their toes in this concept, I realized that there's some energy in this, and it's pretty darn exciting.
For sure. So tell us about what's the thrust of the book, and we'll dig into like the nitty gritty of it. But yeah, give us the broad strokes of it.
All right. So the backstory is that it came to me in a very strange way in late 2019. I've told the story a number of times, so if you've heard this before, forgive me, but I went to bed one night, and I remember being kind of tired. I wanted to get some sleep, and instead of sleeping, I felt like I was plugged into an electrical socket, and I began just downloading this entire novel plot. And it was about, of all insanely timed things, a viral pandemic resulting in mass vaccination, which I call in the novel, giving way to mass illness and death, and ultimately a kind of dystopian future. And that all came through to me in 2019 before COVID even broke in the West.
Wow. Okay.
So that I was working on this book as the scamdemic happened, and literally responding to it in real time or observing it in real time. I already had the plot.
Yeah.
I was literally writing it as it happened.
Wow.
And so complete with, the same kind of, vaccine-induced genocide, vaccine-induced genocide we're seeing, all of it. And I do have a witness that this was the case. Lee, my partner, whom you know, I told her the whole story the following day as we had a bike ride. She was amazed. She was kind of flabbergasted that all of this came through in one night. And she knew me, and I began writing it, and stayed pretty faithful to that. It was a different writing experience for me. I over the years, I've gotten a little more relaxed in where and how I can write. I'm very noise sensitive, so it was really odd that I could write this one sort of in the melee of the kitchen table with a homeschooling son and business going on and everything in the world happening. So I just came streaming out. It was the most effortless thing, and it didn't even take that long to write a chapter. And then I would read it to Lee very often, right then and there, or later. And she was like, "Oh my God, that's incredible! It just keeps coming out of you. I can't believe it." So that was an interesting experience. Just how it came through, and then the actual experience of writing it. It took me in the neighborhood of a year to finish it. And I've said before that I believe that Kali the Destroyer, and that's Kali with a C, by the way, not a K. Kali the Destroyer has the potential to come to be regarded as a historically significant novel, and that's not because I wrote it or even because of its literary quality, which nevertheless I think is pretty good, but it highlights a little known yet extremely important fact, and that's that its primary subject involves the single most censored story in the history of humanity.
And obviously, we have to go, well, what's this most censored story?
Right. So I was just pausing, give me a little, throw me a
Metaphors.
bone, Brendan. That is the Gnostic telling of what I contend could very well be the true nature and origins of the earth and humanity. According to John Lamb Lash, who wrote a wonderful book several years ago called Not in His Image, he first retold this story in the modern era, this narrative, the fallen goddess scenario is what he calls it.
Mm-hmm.
And he claims that this is the real reason for the holy wars, the inquisitions against pagans and goddess worshiping and shamanic peoples everywhere, that has resulted in a genocide count. If you look over the years, a genocide count that's probably in the high millions. Right? So this was the most, not just censored, but the most dangerous story to even know anything about.
Definitely. Yep. 100%.
And it also seems to be, I would offer, it may very well be the real reason that genocide, the vaccine assisted variety, is still happening right now with what's going on here with what I call Operation Warped Speed.
Yep.
Right? And this whole goddess thing is, I call it a rabbit hole full of rabbit holes. And what it does is it singles out, I'm gonna contend, it singles out the source of evil as we experience it. There's a whole, subdivision of theology called ponerology, which is the study of evil. And to me, the fallen goddess scenario tells what I would consider a plausible story for what evil actually is on Earth.
Okay.
And who our real enemies are. Who are the puppet masters manipulating the strings of monarchies and governments and corporations and religions and armies in order to coordinate this multi-generational, multi-millennial, inhuman agenda to subjugate and eventually destroy us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess you're leading into the Archontic discussion.
Absolutely. I mean, we say things like deep state or new world order, cabal, Illuminati, and people sling these words around, and most of the time they don't even know really what they mean anymore. They've gotten to be almost just watered down terms, but they do point at who the controllers are, even if these are shadowy people, the deep state, the invisible enemy, whatever you want to call it. But to these ancient Gnostic people, some of whose texts were rediscovered in the 1940s in a cave it was a kind of cave in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. The Gnostics' teachings were so threatening to the early Catholic Church, and I would say presumably true for that reason. They were systematically destroyed until they were basically erased from our collective memory. But for the Gnostics, the ultimate powers behind the terrestrial tyrants that we might be able to identify are called Archons. Now, a lot of people have probably heard of that term, and there's a lot of disagreement over what it means, because it can mean just leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a government official or that kind of thing. But I would point out that government itself means something to govern the mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
According to John Lash, the Archons are the ultimate mind parasites. They're these extraterrestrial beings, entities, that have the ability to enter the human mind and essentially infect it to the extent that people become archontified. And then they go about fulfilling the agenda of the Archons, which is anti-human and transhuman in the extreme. So when we look at the leaders that have been, the so-called leaders that have been flushed out of their comfort zone and forced to reveal their true nature in this whole thing that we've been living through for the last year and a half, I would say those are archontified people. Because I don't even think they're people anymore, to be totally honest. Not in any meaningful sense.
No, that's right. Not in the sense of, a human who's connected to their heart and their intelligence and intuition.
Right. And that's what really, means something. They're basically transmogrified, transhumanized tools of an extraterrestrial binary intelligence.
Mm-hmm. When you say an extraterrestrial binary intelligence, can you flesh that out a bit for us?
Yeah, sure. This is a quote I read recently. It's from the book. So give you a little sneak peek of the book. The main character is Callie, and the plot takes place. The story takes place in a futuristic dystopian society that happens if we don't correct what's going on right now. That's the whole concept. Callie is a teenager. She's 15, turning 16. She's a huge pop star in this world that's sort of a Hunger Games-esque society. Throw in some Handmaid's Tale and maybe some other dystopian, Fahrenheit this and, Brave New World that, and you end up with this world that I've created. And Callie's having a conversation with someone whose name will have to remain. She'll have to remain anonymous because that would give too much away. But I'm going to read this little conversation between the two. Okay. So, so this person that she's speaking to says that the Illuminati are the willing. No, all right. The Illuminati are the willing terrestrial servants of the Lord Archon, who demands everything from pedophilia and child sacrifice to war and chaos as offerings that create loosh. And then Callie says, never heard of it. Loosh is a hyperdimensional energy given off by the human soul when traumatized. The Archons parasitically feed on it. Think of it as their simulacrum of Kundalini. Why is seemingly everything the Archons do counterfeit? Because they lack the capacity to create anything truly original. In their insane jealousy, they can only mimic the divinely instilled creative capacity of the anthropos, which is the Gnostic term for the human race, basically. So are the Illuminati still technically even human? That is a probing question. If the definition of a human is a child of the goddess, in possession of an immortal soul and the ability to invent, the answer would most certainly be no. And then I'm going to skip down. And Callie asks, don't the Illuminati realize they're just pawns in someone else's game? Even if they realize this, I will wager they are beyond caring. They have been completely integrated into the AI. The artificial intelligence. This is another term for the Archontic hive mind. It is a binary operating system that imitates the many shades of gray characteristic of human intelligence, only to end up a circumscribed parody of it that processes everything strictly in terms of black and white. Good versus evil, man versus woman, rich versus poor, east versus west, liberal versus conservative, take your pick. Anytime you see dichotomies that ignore the human experiment's infinite nuances, you can be certain you are encountering the Archontic mind.